Hello, friends and fellow gamers, I am That Zero, and today we are back to chat on some more Last Cloudia. More specifically, we are going to be getting into our next installment of Surviving Arena. This time, a little bit more for some of you endgame players out there having trouble with one pesky little sorcerer called Maiden Theria. She is an absolute plague on Arena. She is beautiful, she is broken, and makes everybody miserable that does not have her. My plan for this video is we're going to go through piece by piece and identify the main things that make her broken, and then as we go through them, I will talk about some different ways that you could attempt to combat them. So, before we get into it, I do have one pretty key piece of advice for when she's causing you lots of problems. So that's actually located right here. So what happens is when you go to battle, so you see off to the right here, there's this button. Costs you some Zell. It says find different opponents. So when you see Theria, just keep pushing that button over and over again until you're not fighting her. Yeah, easiest way to get through here. Yeah, because she's just a hoe, and you don't want to fight her if you don't have one yourself. Some of you can go now, so I've cracked the code. Congrats. I don't know what else you need that Zell for, so go ahead and just spend it. And don't fight her. Alright, cool. If you're still here, it means that you've been infuriated so thoroughly that this is now a matter of pride. You need to murder some Therias just to assert dominance and get redemption, because your ego can't possibly take any more failure via God Heal spam, which is pretty understandable, to be fair. It's quite frustrating. Now, I won't go through everything in her kit and things that she has to offer, but I will go through the key pieces that make her so frustrating to play against in Arena, and options for combating those various strengths. First of all, her healing spells are discounted. They give a barrier that soaks 1,000 damage. She also has Auto Advanced Magic Circle, granting extra MP regen. And fourth, God Heal exists. So for anybody that may have not had the pleasure of facing God Heal for some reason, it freezes time, and generally just heals people back to 100% HP. It normally costs 21 MP when used on anyone else, but for Theria it only costs 16, meaning that compared to other units, she's going to get to use it more often and more quickly, and basically her 5th cast of it is free compared to if you were using anyone else, because math. If she's allowed to live for like 20, 30 seconds even, odds are pretty high that she will just have enough MP to sustain infinite God Heals for the rest of the match. And every time she heals someone, she gives them a barrier that makes them soak an extra 1,000 damage and prevents flinch until that barrier gets broken. So yeah, it's a problem. Let's go ahead and talk about some options for combating this problem. First off, the core of healing. There's 2 common ways to fight this. One is using the Ghost Hime arc, which I've talked about in the past. It applies Spirit Rot to everybody right out the gate. So this is going to cut all healing in half, which is great, because even though she discounts God Heal down to 16 MP, when this is active, she's probably only going to heal people up to maybe 50% or 60%. So to get the full effect that she normally would, she's going to have to burn 32 MP, which is pretty great. Next, should also be relatively obvious, the status Ailment Illness. When this is applied to a unit, it prevents healing. Full stop. Just altogether, you can't be healed. Most of the time, Theria's AI is not smart enough to know when this is applicable. It's not smart enough to just know that you shouldn't be God healing. So what happens is the AI will see an ally is weak, but they have illness. She uses the spell to try to heal them. AI recheck sees another ally still weak because they haven't been healed, and she'll burn another until she's totally reset her entire MP pool. So that's pretty great, and that's a pretty solid way to counter some of that spam, is if you can manage to apply illness in some way. Now, this is also applicable in niche cases where you're fighting not only Theria, but Rem. When Rem gets low health, she enters her demon mode, which basically heals her to full and makes her a total badass in terms of survivability, damage output, but for the duration of it, which is 40 seconds, she can't be healed anymore. Well, you can abuse this by weakening her first, getting her into demon mode, and then leaving her at low HP so that every time Theria gets a little bit of MP, she wastes it on Rem. And then you could just CC Rem, not even kill her, just leave her on the board the whole time, kill the rest of the party over and over to get all your points, and Rem can just be there as your tool to just make sure Theria can't do anything. That's a little bit more niche, but it's something that you can do if you are cognizant of it, and you don't need to be building illness because it's built into Rem already. I will note that there are ways to have Theria's AI not be as wasteful as she is there, but I'm definitely not going to talk about it because I'm sorry, but y'all running M Theria, you don't need more help, okay? So we're not going to do it. Another option is to simply not let her cast. You can try to leverage status ailments other than illness to try to shut her down. So silence and stun are the main ones that you'd want to focus on, but just giving her illness as well could also just work. You're trying to kill her, she god heals on herself, she gets that barrier, so you still have to fight through 1,000 damage, but again, she's burning MP, casting these heals that are doing nothing but applying more damage resistance via the barrier, so it's working, is the point. Otherwise, if you can just get her stunned or silenced, she's going to keep building MP so that when she respawns after you kill her, she's still going to be queued up. So you still want to kill her as quickly as you can, but if you need to, say, deal with a different caster and maybe a different caster is silence nil, and maybe their M Theria is not nil on silence because maybe you're running V or a null melt and you can bring them down to resist. Maybe your answer is going to be simply focusing down their other caster that's going to CC you and having your ailment applier targeting M Theria to just get her to not be able to heal so that she's just kind of put off on the side to not be dealt with while you kill other key targets and then work your way back around to killing Theria. Now, when applying ailments, V is obviously the best option. There's a reason that he's the other scourge on Arena and he's so hard to deal with. So if you have him, use him. He gets a free Annul Mouth effect at the start of the match, reducing all ailment resists by 1. So that means that any opponents that you go against have to be building +3 to any resistances that they care about. That gets really, really costly between equipment and the SC that it just generally costs. Make sure whenever you're targeting someone to just check and make sure that it's not nil. I know that should be obvious, but it means that they are immune to it, so you're wasting your time. Don't do it. Try a new strategy if you see that even after using a Null Mouth, they're still nil. That plan's not going to work. Cool. You can run Silence Research as well as the sword Blue Branch Forger for 2 chances at applying the silence. So if your focus is to have somebody like V or some other type of character that can spread ailments specifically focus on trying to take casters out of a fight, those are the things that you want. Silence Research as well as Blue Branch Forger. And you definitely want Dual Wield as well, because Dual Wield increases your hit count and you want as many hits as you can because every hit has a chance to apply these status ailments. Another good option is the Cactus Hammer, which has a chance to apply stun. Now, a decent example of somebody other than V that could be used, though I don't recommend it since he's not super meta, but one of the things that I used to do is I would actually run OG Master Thief Robin. Yes, the one that everybody says is trash. He's kind of trash, but he's got some niche uses. So he's got a high hit count on his regular attacks with a pretty decent radius, so if enemies are close enough, you could be trying to apply to multiple. I believe he actually comes with Blind Research innately, which means that he's kind of built for it out the gate. Plus he can use every weapon, which means you don't need to waste SC on equipping things to him because he can just use everything outright. Now, the other key feature that I really like about OG Master Thief Robin is that his S2 is one of the only S2s in the game that gets a full charge with just skill charge 2. And if you don't know what it does, it instantly teleports behind an enemy and deals damage, which means right at the start of a match for just 3 SC, Robin gets to be on their caster's ass, and you can just start spamming auto attacks to try to get your researches off. Again, it's not super meta, but it is a fun option, and for any of you that just has time to waste on trying quirky stuff and just building silly things, because what else are you going to do at endgame? Master Thief Robin, he kind of has some utility that's a little bit interesting. Now, another strategy is to just simply focus her down quickly so that she's not on the board gaining MP anyway. This is probably the best answer so that you don't have to deal with the inevitable god heals when she gets revived later. So as soon as she revives, you also need to put all of your focus on her to make sure she stays off the board if you can manage to get her off the board in the first place. Okay, so to do this best, you probably want to be running 1 or 2 assassin type units. An assassin is basically a physical DPS that has 1 or more skills that can instantly dash to a target, and that you can have a charge of that skill or those skills at the start of the match, whether that's via using quick charges or a quick trigger or Abandoned Sea of the City or some other tools that maybe you have. You'll need to figure out what assassins you have and what is going to work best for you. I personally find Dante to be exceptionally good, but without the right comp and support, he may not be for everyone. A few things to note when focusing down any sorcerer, not just M Theria. If built appropriately, sorcerers should be running some sort of a revive mechanic, as well as an auto heal mechanic, such as Awakening. The revive mechanic would probably be Decoy, for example. In M Theria's case, she also has auto heal. If an enemy is choosing to use this, you can actually kind of use that to your advantage to get her to eat some extra MP, since that heal spell costs more MP than if she were just going to God heal herself. But I digress. The best way to compensate for this core caster killing issue comes down to unit selection. When choosing your assassin, you want to be able to not only dash onto a target, but consistently deal out damage to get through an HP pool, a full HP heal from something like Awaken or an auto heal, potentially a barrier from MT Theria, which is an extra 1,000 damage, and then hopefully get that kill. And then additionally, after you can manage to climb that big-ass mountain of killing this caster, you need to be super vigilant on watching for that respawn. So first of all, when you climb that mountain and they die, check their points up top. Pause the game by targeting enemies, whatever you need to do. See if they lost a point. They should not have, if they know what they're doing, because it means that if they're still at 5 points, that decoy revive is about to happen. And when it happens, they will revive at partial health. When they come back at a sliver of health, you want to also have units, such as your assassin or someone else, with skills that can target enemies and do instant damage regardless of their positioning. Good examples of this: Kohaku's S1, where she dashes to a target; Dante's S1, where he can overdrive and instantly throw a wave at an enemy; V's S2, because Guillotine can trigger instantaneously to dish out damage; Gen's S1 or S3. All of these skills charge reliably enough that they should usually be up when a revive happens, so that you can literally tap a kill switch and confirm that point as soon as the decoy res happens. So again, this isn't just for MT Theria, this is just tips for killing casters in general based on the current meta. Now, if you're having trouble dealing enough damage to deal with sorcerers, remember you can always do things like add Sorcerer Slayer and Special Boost, just so that you can elevate multipliers on those type of enemies. You can also build crit and crit damage so that you have some spikier hits, but you do need to be wary of what arcs are on her, or any other sorcerer for that matter. So if they're using the Beast of the End arc, this actually makes it so they cannot take critical damage. So if that's the case, that's a lot of wasted SC that you're not getting value off of, so just be aware of that. Watch for this arc, and know that if you're running a crit damage comp for spiky damage, this may not be the best fight, and maybe you want to look for a different MT Theria to try to tackle. Or adjust your build accordingly so that you have more neutral damage instead of crit damage. Now, another arc option to note is Altar of the Forbidden Book. This cuts her God heal cost down to, I believe, 8 MP. So if they're doing this, they might also be running an accessory Band's Music Box. What this does is grants the wearer 3 to 10 MP at wave start. So normally that's kind of whatever, and that's sort of a pretty shitty effect. But in Arena, in most cases, that means that she's got 1 God heal ready right as soon as the match starts, which can be a little bit annoying. So the bright side of seeing an MT Theria that happens to be running this arc is that she has to leech 20% of her max HP in order to get this reduced cast cost. So if you're aware of this, you can adjust your game plan accordingly. You could focus threats, such as maybe another caster, and make her burn MP and some of her HP for this cheap casting. And then after 2 or 3 casts and you're paying attention to her health pool, she could be down to 40 to 60 HP, and then you can shift focus to her, and at that point your goal is to just get her down to 20% HP or less, because then if she attempts to God heal herself, she just instantly kills herself. So just be aware, if you see somebody using that book, it's risky, but if you play it right, it could really work in your favor. So be aware of your opponent's arc choices and just make sure that you accommodate things accordingly. Now, onto another issue that is actually a bit easier for us to solve. She reduces damage by 20% for the most common enemy type. You may already be accidentally building around this and didn't even think about it. Basically, this checks all unit types that her opponent has. If the team is, say, running 1 sorcerer and 3 soldiers, all the sorcerers on that opposing team are going to be dealing 20% less damage. That's pretty bad. Just make sure you're not doing this. So what you need to do is just be aware of your main DPS and assassin units and try not to overlap on unit types. So the easiest way to do this, and most common, is to say run 2 sorcerers and have 1 DPS be a soldier and 1 be a sniper, like V, or a god like DB Ray or DeGroat, however you pronounce her name. I don't know. Names are hard, just like everything else. But anyway, whatever works. Just check your types and make sure whatever you want doing the most damage, you're not repeating those types. And then all of a sudden, you're just skirting around that. Because your sorcerers are just meant to mostly do CC, or in MT Theria's case, heal and keep people alive, her damage reduction getting applied to those sorcerers means it basically doesn't affect you in the slightest, so your actual damage dealers are looking pretty great. Now, onto what I consider to be probably the biggest reason that she is broken. If all the rest of this wasn't enough, this is the main reason why I recommend that you just skip her. If you don't have MT Theria yourself, this problematic trait says that just for existing, she makes all of her allies completely immune to feint. Yep. I've mentioned in the past how key it is to use things like Stonebird to make your most important unit immune to fainting. Another tool is also the Bell Tower of Guidance, which is an arc. It has a very similar effect to whatever unit it happens to be on. The fact that your opponent using M Theria gets to completely ignore this game mechanic altogether really sucks dirty buttholes. So even if you manage to wipe the opposing team in the first few seconds, it's very likely that they probably dealt a decent amount of feint damage to you, which means when they revive, if they manage to get enough more hits on you before you manage to confirm that 5th point, your team will just start passing out, and then they're going to start picking you off one by one, and that could just chain into them getting cast space to start chaining spells on you, and you could just come back and lose, even if you wiped their team right out the gate. The best way to combat this is A, get good and just pull M Theria. For real, she's the best way to combat herself. Obviously, people don't all have access to just do that. But anyway, M Theria is the best counter to M Theria, because at least it puts you on even footing. 2, put Bell Tower of Guidance, the one that makes a unit immune to fainting, put it on a caster so they can't faint, and then use crowd-controlled magic with a long duration such as Blizzard or Venomous Rainfall. This way, even if the rest of your units get fainted, as long as you can hold the cast space, hopefully you can manage to keep the enemy CC just long enough that your allies can recover from the fainting. If you manage to recover and stay alive through one instance of fainting, I think it's unlikely that a match will last long enough that you'll get fainted again. So you basically just need to survive long enough to get back in the fight. This is one of the ways you can do it. Just be aware when you're choosing your caster and the fights you're in. If you're using Blizzard, DB Ray does not flinch from ice magic. So you need to either be using something else, or you need to be using Abyssal Silver in order to convert your ice damage over to dark damage so that it can actually affect DB Ray. So if you're fighting M Theria and DB Ray, just be aware of that caveat. You know, you need to adjust these strategies depending on who you're fighting and what the situations are, just like I said with arcs. In addition to running that on your caster, obviously run Stonebird on your most important unit, and then on everyone else you can run Concentration for 3SC, which reduces your feint time to get you back in the fight sooner. You can also run Feint Resist for 6 points, which actually reduces your feint damage by 35%. That could just be long enough to give you a good enough timer to squeeze out that last point and actually clinch a victory up before a unit gets taken out of the fight. So that could very well be worth the 9 points. And lastly, like I said, if you're fortunate enough to have DB Ray, he's obviously top tier for many reasons. In addition to flinching off Blizzard, he just comes with feint immunity. So, like, I assume if you have him, you're already using him, but if not, please stop hurting my heart and go show that boy some love. He deserves it. He's so good. Okay, so this has been a long journey to discuss one pesky annoyance in Arena, but our beautiful savior and also Salt Factory, Maiden Theria, demands every bit of this attention. So let's go over the key pieces of what we've talked about. Diversify your team comp so that your main damage dealers don't share types. Cool. Give your damage dealers Sorcerer, Slayer, and crit support if they don't have enough juice. Reasonable enough. Use DPS abilities with dash abilities, burst support on their other sorts of attacks, as well as quick charging abilities that can target regardless of positioning so that you can easily confirm any decoy revives. Disrupt her healing via Spirit Rot on Ghost Hime, or just by applying illness to members of her team. Lock her out of performing her job with Silence or Stun if you can make that sort of strategy work. And lastly, run feint buffs on your team, whatever you have available, so that you can help to get back in the fight after you get fainted if you do get to that point. Also running a feint immune caster that can reliably CC your opponents. Or, of course, like I said, DB Ray. And just use him to wreck face. Now that we've recapped everything, this last little bit is going to be some arena examples where I'm not going to use my M Theria, and I'm going to talk through fighting a few of her in the wild, and some ways that we can apply these strategies. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a shot. So it looks like they have Senku using Blizzard, M Theria doing M Theria things, Libet for pure damage, so she's going to be a huge threat. Gen is triple nil on Senku, also nil. M Theria resistant, so we might be able to use V on her. So the damage I think is going to go to Senku, since that's their Blizzard user and we want to get him off the board. So we're going to go there. V is going to focus M Theria to try to see if we can get a stun, illness, or silence on her. And Dante is going to also focus Senku. Now, he is weak to fire, so hopefully this should make it not too terrible. Alright, so it looks like we got rid of him right away. But again, notice that the points didn't go down right away. That means the decoy will be happening. We've hurt M Theria enough off of some pass-through damage that we're going to try macabbing because there's just a large amount of damage. And then we'll have an overdrive ready for when the spawn comes up. So we're going to see if we can get her down. All right, so she happened. These guys are weak. So what we're going to do is we're going to sting over to Gen to start damaging him. Switch over to V. We're going to start attempting to curse Lilibet. Do some more damage on Lilibet. Then Dante's going to continue to look. Okay, so Senku's up. We're going to go ahead and overdrive across the map while staying on Gen. So we now have Theria here, which means we can overdrive onto her. Unfortunately, he was still in the animation, so we weren't quite able to clinch it up, but it's okay. Okay, so it looks like he had an extra revive, so we're going to overdrive there again. Perfect. So God Heal wasn't able to happen on him. Lilibet got it, but that's fine. We got our Venomous Rainfall off because we kept Senku off the board, which means we now own the cast space, so we should start flinching them once we are through the barriers from M Theria. We're going to go ahead and Macabre on Theria for that burst damage. Cool. And then we're going to Sting, I think, over to Lilibet because she's 35% weak to our fire, so we're just going to see if we can nuke her off the board. Gen hasn't been doing much for them, I don't think, so we're just going to try to Sting over and see if we can nuke her. And we did. Again, there is a revive happening. We're going to see if we can get a Tornado Storm to happen, and then we're just going to look around. So Lilibet's here. We're going to overdrive her. Then Theria's up, so we are going to get V, and he is going to just start using some auto. Because these guys are stacked up, I think I want Dante to slowly run over and try to Macabre, see if I can hit both of them. Switching back over to V to spam some autos. So I do see that. So I can't see if the barrier's on Senku due to what we have going on, but it looks like he probably has a barrier right now. So before they can heal, Guillotine is going on to Lilibet. No, Gen will do that. Gen will do that. So I'm going to try to Guillotine here so that I might be able to get a flinch on him or M Theria. And then Gen is going to confirm the kill on Lilibet. Cool. So they did get a Blizzard, but Lilibet is out, which means a large portion of their damage gone. So we don't have to worry about that. So voice impersonation on Senku is going to be huge. We have to get him off the board at this point. So as soon as this ends, we need to dash over. And we need to try to take care of Senku. So we need to try our best to Sting. Yeah, they got another one off, so there's not much we can really do there. Yeah, they're just going to keep casting us out because Senku has the cast speed on us, and he's got us locked. So there's not much we can necessarily do, unfortunately. We're just going to get locked out. So we need to be able to interrupt Senku, which is really, really hard with M Theria there. We can try launching maybe some blockades and see if we can passively hit them, but it's pretty unlikely. Yeah, we're just going to get completely locked out. There just simply isn't much that can be done. I should have focused one of them a little bit sooner. And now, because I wasn't cognizant enough of keeping Senku off the board, we're just done. We have no way of fighting it. All right, we're going to go ahead and try this again now. This time we decided to update some things. Gen is now going to be our healer. And we are going to have Lily on casting because she can instantly cast, which means taking away that cast space might be a little bit easier. So we'll go ahead and see how this is going to work. Okay, so first off, Gen is going to use Shallow Words, and you'll notice when I use this, I decided to put on a crystal necklace that gives him MP every time he uses a skill. So he's actually going to gain a little bit of MP, and hopefully through him spamming a little bit of skills, he'll be able to have God Heals up more reliably. So Theria is going to go ahead and get autoed by V. And we're going to go with the classic strat of kill Senku as fast as humanly possible. So he's off the board, that's great. So we're now going to Macabre on Theria. He's getting God healed, that's fine. So, we're doing that. Okay, so we're here, we're on this, we're going to go ahead and Guillotine to make sure he gets off the board. Okay, so it seems like he's got multiple revives going on, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and auto again. He's just going to auto attack. We're going to get a God Heal onto Dante. And Lily is going to Venomous Rainfall. So we can hopefully start locking them out in that way. Okay. So she's relatively weak. We're going to go ahead and just keep hitting M Theria with this damage. We're going to see if we can confirm a kill with I put a spell on you. And an overdrive. Okay. Guess let's see if we can hit an overdrive here. Alright, we managed to get Senku, I believe. Which means that should be the only Blizzard we get hit with. Meteor Storm's coming in, which seems to be what Gen is doing for them. So we're going to go ahead and I put a spell on you here. And then we're going to take a chance of running in here. Actually, no, we're just going to guillotine because we can hit both of them. Again, is going to get our God Heal on Dante. Nice. And then I believe we just want to sting onto Theria for as much damage as we possibly can. I'm going to go ahead and try to Venomous. And we hit it, which is awesome. Alright, so from here, we're just going to try to spam some blockades to just get as much damage on them as we can as the Venomous Rainfall comes in. So we managed to take out one. So we're going to go ahead and try to Shadow Combo. If we can hit Senku and Theria, we should be able to get a lot of good damage on them. So while that's happening, Dante is going to throw some overdrives, I think towards Theria. Actually, no, towards Senku. He needs to get off the board. Nice, so he's gone. Now we can Macabre onto Theria. We can get another Venomous Rainfall off. Put a spell on you. Okay, so they did get a Blizzard. That's going to mess with us a bit. A bit. But we do have another Macabre, which is great. Okay. So, they're running the double Sorcerer effect, so we do have to manage to deal with balancing that and make sure to get Gen off the board too. We need to get this Macabre to kill Theria. So Senku's back up, which means we have to start focusing him again. We need a Venomous Rainfall to make sure that's happening. God Heals are going off, which is fine. That's right, Senku can't do anything right now because our Venomous Rainfall is doing things. So we're going to try coming over and see if we can get a Shadow Combo on Theria, because it's going to hit Senku, Lilibet, and Theria. So yeah, let's see if we can make that work or not. We're also going to Voice Impersonation to hit all of them as well. And I guess we'll do this just to, I guess, gain some MP, which doesn't really matter. But hey, an ult's happening, so we may as well get this done. Okay, so let's go ahead and I put a spell on you. Dante, go ahead and hit Theria and V. Use Guillotine to make sure Theria gets off the board. So it looks like she's actually getting a revive. I don't know how you can get a revive after you've already fully revived. I'm guessing a legendary ring of some sort. So, yeah, he's just going to start auto-attacking, which should be able to just ping him down. Okay, Lilibet is back. Theria's here. We're just going to Guillotine to finish this kill, hopefully. And blockade? Yes. Okay, cool. There we go. So, it's a tough fight without Theria. But notice we didn't have to deal with fainting that entire time. Attention was off of Gen and onto other people, so he didn't get hit enough to really get fainted. At least I didn't notice him get fainted. V, I guess, was along the sides enough that it wasn't a big deal. And then we had Dante and Lily, who just simply couldn't be fainted. So we were able to last that long in a fight, even though they had feint resistance and we didn't. They had multiple spellcasters going off. They had Theria. It was brutal. The only thing that we really had working for us was they only had one damage dealer, and Lilibet just wasn't quite built to do quite enough of what they needed to. Still, there's one example. You're going to have to find ways to do it with your own. I know. I used V. I used Gen. I'm using very meta stuff here, but I wasn't using Theria. So use what you can leverage. Try to follow some of this stuff that I have gone over, and hopefully you can do decently well. And if not, again, you don't need to fight her. Just use some Zell and go fight somebody else, people. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. If you want to support what I do and the videos that I make, give me a like. It gives me a direct shot of dopamine right into my brain hole, and I like it. So give me some of that. And also just get some cool people to come play this game. So we can always use some more awesome people. Get them over on the Reddit so that they have some decent guidance. And also feel free to join my Discord if you like me and want to talk to me some more or whatever. So all the description, of course, down in links below or whatever. And yeah, so again, thank you so much for spending this time with me. Go forth and murder things. Bye.